Hello everybody and welcome to episode number 19 of my video tour series. This is a series that puts you live on the streets of Paris in real time so you can have a bit of a vicarious stroll through the city with me if you're so inclined. Most of you can hear me on the replay right now because I'm waiting for my live viewers to arrive. Hello Phyllis Cartwright, you get the prize for the first one to show up. Thank you so much today. So as the title implies here, we are back in the Marais for another fun walk. I've got a lot of great stuff to show you. This is the neighborhood that really pound for pound really does it for me. I think that it really has all that's great about Paris. And I'm going to give you a little taste of that today. We can see here we're near the metro station Saint-Paul. There's an iconic little carousel there for the kids. You can see a church there called St. Paul St. Louis, which I'm going to take you inside of. That's going to be one of the highlights, I think, of our walk today. Really one of my favorite churches, St. Paul St. Louis. We're currently on the Rue Saint Antoine, and we're going to be making our way that way. My original plan was to head toward the Bastille, Place de la Bastille, but researching this walk today, turns out there's a protest or a march there. Something political going on, and so we definitely don't want to mess with that. It's going to be just a zoo there in the next 30 minutes or so. But we are going to explore Rue De Creville, and it's going to lead us to Place des Vosges, which is really fun. So welcome. Over 100 of you as live viewers already, so I'm excited. Here we go. In the Marais. Across from the St. Paul metro station, here's one of those details that we love. Hidden up here between these windows, if you can make it out, there's a plaque that reminds us that in the First World War, Paris was actually bombarded by the Germans pretty heavily. Second World War, not so much, because the city of Paris was given up to the Germans, so there wasn't much of a fight to take it over. But definitely, particularly in 1918, towards the end of the First War, a lot of bombardment, so that's what this plaque is reminding us of, and I'll read it for you if you can't quite make it out. It says, a bombing of the 12th of April, 1918, German torpedoes, and then it says 27 dead, 72 wounded. You can also make out the date of this building. They put this new building here in 1923, and the plaque itself dates back to 1924. So essentially they built this building here, I assume repairing or replacing whatever was bombed originally, and then the very next year they put this plaque up. So a little World War I history, and we'll delve into some World War II history as well. There's pretty much always some of that in the Marais. So welcome everyone. I'm glad you decided to join me here live on your Saturday morning, at least for the Americans out there. So again, this is St. Paul metro station. Quite a hub of activity for sure, especially on a warm, sunny Saturday afternoon. Just to give you some context, when I did my cherry blossoms tour, there were a bunch of cherry blossoms right there behind that white van, and they're all gone. So that was a very fleeting moment of the cherry blossoms. Luckily, I caught it on video. If you missed that one, definitely go and check it out on replay. You can see it on my YouTube channel. Here we're going to go up a street called the Rue De Creville, really in the heart of the Marais today. Beautiful, warm, sunny spring day. Everybody's out and about. Hello, Charlene. Hello, Carol from Ohio. So lovely, as always, to have you join me. Hoping we're going to get some nice, clear, crisp video for all of you today. Lisa Parker from Baltimore, bonjour to you. Actually, very quickly heading into part of the Jewish quarter. Because we're so close here on the Rue De Creville, I wanted to show you a pretty rare synagogue, Jewish synagogue. And the architect of this synagogue was built in 1913. It wasn't just any old architect. It was a guy called Hector Guimard. And for those of you who are fans of Parisian history, you might recognize that name. He's the one who designed those iconic cast iron metro entrances, the Art Nouveau entrances. So Hector Guimard, in 1913, he built this synagogue. Why? Well, partly because his wife was Jewish American. So clearly he did it partly for his lady. But this isn't very ornate. Let me cross the street here and get a little bit closer. The synagogue isn't the most ornate example of Art Nouveau, and that's because in 1913, when this was built, Art Nouveau was kind of on its way out, and people really preferred more sort of simple and austere designs. So I'm trying to get you a nice view here. There we go. So you can see a little bit of Art Nouveau there. But he didn't go overboard. You certainly can see some Art Nouveau in his name that's inscribed. If you can make that out in the video, you can see the font of Guimard signing his name was very Art Nouveau. And also there to the right, above some of those windows. Now again, World War II history, it's 1941. The Nazis have already been in Paris for well over a year. And it's the eve of Yom Kippur, the very religious holiday of the Jewish faith. And because the next day this was going to be filled with Jews worshiping and celebrating Yom Kippur, sadly there were some Nazi collaborators who blew up with dynamite, blew up the entrance. So this doorway had to all be redone after the 1941 bombing. That was really one of the first anti-Semitic attacks during the Nazi occupation. Was it the Nazis? Was it just French collaborators? We may never know. But I just wanted to give you a look there from the Jewish Quarter. 1913 synagogue by Hector Guimard, the designer of the Art Nouveau metro entrances. We're going to go back to Rue Saint-Antoine, which has a lot going for it, and I'm excited to show you that today. Really nice, warm, sunny day today. My goodness. It's just the kind of day where you want to be doing exactly this. Having a stroll around, looking for some interesting stuff. We're going to talk about a bit of history, a bit of food. I'm going to show you a really great shop. I've arranged to pop into one of the boutiques in this area that I think you'll find interesting. And back onto the Rue Saint-Antoine. We're going to cross the street real quick. Speaking of Hector Guimard, who did the synagogue, that's the Art Nouveau that he is known for. This is the station of St. Paul. We've got some good food meditation to partake in here. So this is just one of the great bakeries around here, Au Désir de Manon. It's right next to this beautiful medieval street here that I walked us down during the Cherry Blossoms tour. It's called the Rue De Creville, as you can see. Classic example of medieval Paris that was untouched by Mr. Haussmann and Napoleon III as emperor. And so this bakery's always got some fun stuff. There we go. A lot of great cafe action here, as you might expect. If that doesn't get you salivating at the start of this video, I don't know what will. Valerie's asking if there are kosher markets. Yeah, we're out of the Jewish Quarter already, but when you're in that area, yes, for sure. Definitely some kosher delis and some Jewish bookstores in that area and some other synagogues as well. You know, I should mention that synagogue we saw it's one of the few that's visible on the street. For security reasons, a lot of the synagogues have been moved up inside of these buildings. So again, Rue Saint-Antoine in the Marais, in the 4th arrondissement, and it's a great strip of food. So these are the classic rotisserie items that France is known for, the rotisserie chickens. Now, sorry if you're a chicken lover or if you're not a meat eater. Apologize for that. Bonjour. This is a pretty classic view. And if you're into that sort of thing, all of the drippings from the chickens that spin around for hours and hours end up dripping down onto the potatoes. Bonjour. Hello. Everyone's feeling very good today, very friendly. Au revoir. And then right next to it, again, don't know if you're into this or not, but this is foie gras and pâtés. I know in the States, I don't even know if it's legal to have foie gras, but in France, I can tell you they got no qualms about it. So there you go as well. Chocolate, this is called l'atelier du chocolat. You can see already the food is just slapping us right in the face in the best of ways. Bonjour. Hello. Everyone's waving to me. Let me give you some of this action too. Oh, I wish you could all smell this. Okay, moving on. Bonjour, Vivian Barnett. Hope you're well today. Oh, look at the sun hitting that limestone over there. So good. Really happy with the quality of the light today. Okay, so this is exciting. I gotta back up a little bit. I want to show you this church, but first let's take in this grand Baroque facade. This is called St. Paul St. Louis. A nice, slow, meditative pan up to the top. Look at that. Oh, it's glorious. St. Paul St. Louis is from the 1640s. A classic example of the church coming during the Baroque period in Italy and all of Europe, really. And basically coming with these big, over-the-top, dramatic, theatrical facades, essentially to counter reform over the Protestants who were sticking it to the church. And the church said, no, we are the big dogs, and they started building these enormous facades. So St. Paul, St. Louis, these pretty iconic red doors with these gorgeous lions. You can see why I had to become a photographer. I wasn't before I moved to Paris, but there's just too much going on. All right, we're going to quiet things down a bit here. Again, the 1640s, what happened was Paris switched it up architecturally. They went from the Gothic, pointed arches, vaulted ceilings, flying buttresses, elaborate stained glass, gargoyles, and they moved into the Baroque style. Now, the Baroque style is all about rounded arches, marble columns, big imposing pillars, and notably domes. Look at that. When this dome was built, it was the largest that Paris had ever seen. It blew people away. It was absolutely breathtaking. And the artistry here, when you think that everything had to be handmade in the workshops of the area, this is essentially mostly carved limestone. And there's some colored marble altars on either side. A little backlit there. That's the organ above the entrance, which is always pretty much a classic configuration. This is a Jesuit church, which is fairly rare in Paris. It was also the first stone was laid by King Louis XIII, and he also attended the first mass with Cardinal Richelieu, the very infamous cardinal. And so they were here for the very first ceremony. Now, there's so much, I got to tell you, when you take a tour of the Marais with me, physically in person, I bring you in this church, and we basically go through it inch by inch, and I show you all of the lovely details and the anecdotes and the mysteries and legends behind it. And I want to give you just a little bit of a taste there, because the idea is that you feel transported to Paris in real time at this very moment. So if I were giving you a tour in person, I would show you this. We've got a lot of revolutions in the history of France. And one of them was called the Commune. It happened in 1870 and 71. It escalated to the point where tens of thousands of men, women, and children, working class folks, rose up against the French government to try to start a new republic. It escalated to something called La Semaine Sanglante, which means the week of blood, or the bloody week. And one of those battles saw the revolutionaries backing themselves into this church. So imagine they're all backing in here, the revolutionaries, and they're fighting through that doorway, the French soldiers. And literally they're getting massacred by their own government in 1871. One of them, one of those gentlemen, must have assumed he might not survive that battle, so he scrawls this message, a bit of graffiti, that says French Republic or death, République Française ou la mort. Now, after that revolution subsided, the church tried to wash away this anti-establishment message, but then it came back, and they tried to scrub it away again, and it reappeared. And the harder the church tried, the more this sort of ghostly message refused to leave, so they eventually gave up. We don't know what that person used that day. Did he write this with blood? Was it acid? Was it oil from the lamps of the chandeliers? But at any rate, it has remained because it simply refuses to go away, and the church can't wash it off. So, a little bit of graffiti from 1871, and just for good measure, that's Joan of Arc, by the way, in the back. Can't go wrong with a bit of Joan of Arc. So when I was planning this walk today, I decided I'd do something a little bit different. I personally am not a religious person, but I know some of you are. And because the idea is to give you a vicarious moment in Paris as if you were here, I think we're going to light a candle. So I'm going to put my coins in here. Oh. Yep. That amount is going to get us one of these big boys here. Look how huge that is. Whoa. So, I'm not a praying man, but if any of you are, this is for you out there. And if you're not religious, then we're just going to light a candle in honor of Paris and how wonderful it is. So where are we going to put it? So there's our candle. And I'll just give you a moment wherever you are to say a prayer, make a wish, just enjoy the moment. Okay. Hopefully you guys appreciated that. Let me show you one last perspective that I always like to photograph, and it's just the chandeliers. Gorge, can you imagine when these were lit with candles back in the day? Give you a composition there. Okay, so moving on. We'll say au revoir to our candle. Thank you, candle, you served us well. Okay, here we go. You're going to realize in a minute how quiet it is in this church once you exit it. All right. You're welcome, Deborah. All right, here we go. Now again, back onto Rue Saint-Antoine. Just one last look at that stunning Baroque church from the 1640s, St. Paul, St. Louis. Certainly one of the highlights and one of my earliest memories of when I was in Paris as a tourist. So a lot of good food going on here, folks. Just give you an idea here. I don't know how they do it, but the strawberries are always just the perfect shade of red. Bonjour. Oh, cheese. Look at this. J'ai fait une visite guidée du quartier. Oui. Vous savez pas, je reste pas longtemps. Je peux goûter? Okay, here we go. Qu'est-ce que c'est comme fromage?
C'est Ardigazna.
Ardigazna. Okay. Merci beaucoup. Merci. So I love this place. We're going to move on. But this is called Le Rond du Bois. You definitely want to come through here. Oh, the cheese is fantastic. Ooh, I need some wine. There's some wine. There's always wine when you need it, let's be honest. For those who are into coffee, I got to show you that this is a brand new arrival here called Marais. And I haven't been here yet, but my spidey sense is tingling. I got a feeling this is probably good. I think this is the real deal. And I think this is going to be good stuff. So I'll give you a report on that. It's called Marais. Yes, someone mentioned that the cheese gentleman there, the Laurent Dubois, he is an MOF, which means Meilleur Ouvrier de France. You know, the France love competitions, and they have national competitions for the best butcher, the best cheesemonger, etc. And he won it once for the best cheesemaker. Here we're on the Rue Caron, headed toward one of my favorite spots. It's going to get a little quieter here. When I decided to show you this area, I knew I wanted to take you through this square. Okay, so before we get to the square, I just got to mention, again, we're on the Rue Caron. You're going to see the name there. Right here, as you head north from Saint Antoine, that right there is a gluten-free spot. So for any of you who need that or are into it, go ahead. And if any of you are into frog's legs, you got to know that right here, Renette specializes in frog's legs. So something made me chuckle the other day. Look at this. On their door, they've got some hashtags that they're using. Renette Paris, and then it says Cuisse de Grenouille, which means frog's legs. Frog's legs Paris, and then the last one made me laugh. Frog is in the air. Frog is in the air. Now, speaking of it, do they eat frog's legs all the time? Not really anymore. But so this is kind of a throwback idea. But look at this. These are the different frog legs. And I want to tell you, you can get Provençal with parsley and garlic. You can get Normandy style, which is basically potatoes, crème fraîche, calvados, and chives. Szechuan, Alsatian, Iberian with chorizo ham. I like this Alsatian one with Riesling wine, shallots, and parsley. So anyway, for 22 euros, if you're up for it, if you're the courageous type, this is where you want to come to eat your frog's legs. I have had them before. Honestly, they do taste like chicken. Some people are saying they'll pass on the frogs. Fair enough. This is a fantastic spot to be, a perfect spot to be right now, actually, on a Saturday, sunny day. It's called the Place du Marché Sainte-Catherine. It's a leafy little cobblestone square with a series of cafes and eateries. Those two, by the way, if you watch the first Born Identity movie, when they come to Paris, you'll see these two filmed briefly as one of the characters is walking toward them. So it tends to feel pretty local here. It tends to feel very local, to be honest. Good luck finding a table. This square, by the way, as we turn back around, this used to be a monastery in the 13th century, and the monastery is long gone. And there used to be an outdoor covered market as well, starting in the late 1700s. So a lot of good rich history here. All the buildings are from the 18th century. And it's just, as I said, the Marais has a lot of quintessential slices of what we want Paris to be. At least it's what I want Paris to be. Let me show you this residential courtyard. So many beautiful spaces that are gated off. If I could just have one skeleton key to Paris for just one evening, whew, I could have some fun. This is a hotel that some clients of mine have used called Hotel Jeanne d'Arc, the Joan of Arc Hotel. And I've heard some pretty good things about it. The rooms are a bit small and it's a little pricey, but boy, the location just can't be beat. So keep that in mind. Often when people ask me where they should stay in the Marais, I give them this address. Here's a spot that nobody ever checks out. There's a beautiful old fountain here from the 18th century, so that marketplace that was nearby in the square that we were just at, the fishmongers in the stalls of that market were stinking up the place, so they decided to move the fishmongers over here, and they got their own fountain. Just a quiet, long-forgotten fountain. Juliet Sykes is telling me that the hotel that I just showed is a good one. Boy, they just didn't mess around with fountains back in the day. Just works of art, and I guess I'm not surprised because there are plenty of them around. Okay, I'm going to show you a very interesting boutique that I think some of you will really be into. Charming spot. Annie's asking me if you can drink that water. I don't know, I'd have to go back and check if there are any signs against it. The word for drinkable is potable. So if it says non potable, then you don't want to drink it. But I don't know if I caught any of those signs. I'm not going to be your guinea pig, however. I'm not going to give it a try today. You hear a few extra sirens today because not far from us at Place de la Bastille, there's a protest, a manifestation, as they call them. Something political. I saw some signs about Macron. So we're back at the square now. Good stuff. And this is the shop that I want to show you. Aptly called Marie Antoinette. Cute little spot. So I got permission to come in here and film for a few seconds. It's a perfume shop. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
This is Antonio. Bonjour, Antonio.
Bonjour.
And he is Portuguese. Yes, Portugais.
Portuguais.
And this shop has been here for 11 years. 11 ans. And what it does is it's perfume, but you won't find any big name brands here. You won't find Coco Chanel and things like that. It's all vintage, essentially, like really old school creators and perfume makers. Speaking of vintage, this one's been around for decades, and you can see just in the labeling. So they decided to go against the mass market, mass produced perfumes, which you can surely find everywhere, and instead focus on things with more of a vintage feel. See that? For example, and you've got the creators here as well. You've got the so a bit more of an independent feel. Some of these companies go back to the 60s and the 70s, or even older, actually. Look at these. And I want to show you these here. These are the oldest, Antonio told me, the oldest ones that he has. And this sign here actually says that it's a perfume maker that dates back to the time of Louis XV. And it has the date 1720, if you can make that out. So it's pretty aptly named Marie Antoinette because she could easily have used some of these very perfumes. So feels partly like a museum here. Some soaps. And we'll finish with this, and then we'll leave Antonio alone. Tu aimes bien la musique? I'm telling him I'm enjoying the music here. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that little shop. I'm going to shake Antonio's hand. Merci, monsieur.
Thank you.
Au revoir, bonne journée, bon weekend.
Vous aussi.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Au revoir. Antonio's great. Again, let me show you the shop. If you want to come back through Marie Antoinette. Hope you enjoyed that. I've still got some stuff to show you. We're on our way to Place des Vosges. So if you've got any friends that you want them to join us, go ahead and tag them. Let them know right now. All they got to do is show up on my Facebook page. You can also choose to share this right now. If you just click share, you can pop it onto your own page and let people know what you're watching. Probably time to talk to the 4 or 5 people that are coming here for the first time. I know that there are always some of you. My name's Corey Fry. I call myself a French fry in Paris. I'm a blogger, tour guide, photographer, live streamer. And I've been doing these weekly free, the sun is out. These weekly free walks through Paris live to put you on the streets in real time. And we do it every Saturday. Oh, it's a very, very busy out here. We do it every Saturday, and it's a different neighborhood every time. Sometimes it's a different theme. All the replays are on my YouTube channel if you want to check that out. Also, in the description of this video, you will find subscription information if you want to get exclusive Paris content like PDF maps of all of these walks that I do and advance notice of where they're going to be, and if you want discounts on my tours if you actually come to Paris, if you want to be part of not 1 but 2 private Facebook groups. It has an amazing community of people who help each other out, and they're all Paris lovers. Then you can get access to that too. So check it out. It's called Patreon, and there's a link in the description. Let me show you what's happening here. So that's the end of a protest or a march. So we're going to make our way through this here. Sometimes this is what a Saturday looks like in Paris. Speaking of protests, I understand that today marks an anniversary of the very infamous student riots of 1968. And this street, by the way, also happens to be. So you got the student protests and riots of 68. And then you go further back. This is literally the street that the angry mob marched down to get to the Bastille prison. Please don't call it the Bastille. That's an Anglo version that is incorrect. We call it the Bastille. And it was down there, looming way down at the end where you see those trees. So it's 1789, and the French Revolution is going to get kicked off on July 14th, thanks to this. Now, I don't think this mob here is at risk of, throwing pitchforks around and cutting people's heads off. They seem pretty tame, pretty docile. But let me tell you, go back to 1789, and this is where it all happened. Let me show you this spot here. I'll show you the name here. Famille Marais, and they specialize in honey. Now, if you're a honey fan, you definitely want to come in here because they do all sorts of beautiful stuff. And these are testers, so you can grab one of these, dip it in. So we're looking at honey mixed with thyme and chestnut and famous salt called sel de Guérande. This is lemon, rosemary. It's pretty good stuff. Bonjour. And then here it's great, they've got a couple of vats you can just, like a tap, like a honey tap. I think that's pretty fantastic. So you just grab your jar there. And then essentially you pull a pint of honey. So they've got a lot of good stuff here. And so they specialize in it, this idea of specialty shops. Here they've got some gingerbread that they do as well, and there's always some samples of gingerbread. And more wine. And more wine, and more wine, and more wine. Here we go. I'm going to pick up the pace here because we're going to get to the end of our walk soon. The Place des Vosges, which will be a nice payoff for us. I think we deserve it. Let's get out into the street here. So speaking of my subscribers at Patreon, as usual, I'm going to meet you for a private live cafe chat with another fellow subscriber, one of our community, called Barbara Keeney Harper. Barbara spends 3 months in Paris and 3 months in Atlanta, and she alternates back and forth as an American. And you're going to answer, or she's going to answer your questions, rather. So that's another perk, by the way, if you're interested in subscribing to get extra Paris content. You're going to get access to those weekly cafe chats. And let me tell you, there's a lot of good information. Let's cross the street here. A lot of shops on this side. This is the northern side of Saint Antoine. You can see the dome of another church called Sainte Marie. There's the sound of Paris. Speaking of Jason Bourne, some people say when they hear those sirens, they feel like they're in a Jason Bourne movie. Look at this gorgeous bit of architecture at the end. If we can get down that sidewalk, it's pretty packed. Let me go over to the other side if possible. I got the packed sidewalk on one side and all of these anti-riot police on the other. I still remember the first time I came down this street as a tourist. when I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and everything was brand new. I still have a very indelible memory of my impressions, my feelings as I approached this beautiful brick building of Place des Vosges. And you know, I'm reminded of that every time. So some of those memories you're able to keep alive just by revisiting these places. That's one of the great joys of my life and one thing that I'm very grateful for. So we're going to finish up at Place des Vosges and we're going to meet up with eventually our friend Barbara. And she's going to join us for that live cafe chat, probably under the arcades of Place des Vosges. So that'll be special. So with that very 21st century soundtrack that we have, here's some 17th century architecture. This is the King's Pavilion of Place des Vosges, built out of brick at the time in the early 1600s when that was considered a very expensive material and it was a great sign of wealth. This was the King's Pavilion. Henry IV is the king that we're talking about. And it acts as a beautiful gateway into what's pound for pound my favorite place in town, Place des Vosges. All right. I will one day, I promise you all, do a very in-depth video of Place des Vosges because there's a lot going on here. And I would love to show you all the little nooks and crannies and all the little lost details. But on a day like today, I mean, where else would you rather be? This place is so elegant, it feels so sophisticated. Look at that beautiful curve of the street lamps. Nothing's mass-produced. I mean, these street lamps are one of a kind, unique to Place des Vosges. This happens to be one of the rare parks where you are allowed to use the grass, to sit on the grass and picnic and sunbathe. So we can see the locals, really Parisians at play in their natural habitat. So you have 36 pavilions that were built in the 17th century for the king and his royal court. And today they're apartments, if you can imagine. I mean, let me give you this view again. Multi-million euro apartments for sure, but this is the place to be. This will be a little backlit, but I want to give you a feeling of the quality of light here with the fountain. I know my viewer Peggy Michik is going to enjoy grabbing screenshots of these screen captures. Wow. You know, there's a saying that I sometimes remind people of during my tours. That the saying is that Parisians really own their city. And this is them really owning it and using every square inch of it. They consider their city to be their own backyard. And you got to admire that. The visuals are just endless. This is a sandbox for kids. There's a playground as well in the far corner. Also behind the trees in that far corner, Victor Hugo famously lived. I mean, I've seen this stuff hundreds of times, but I'm staring at my camera screen right now and just enjoying the heck out of this composition. Where else would you rather be, honestly? Amy Harden says so much symmetry, and that's true. This is very, very French. Even though technically the style was brought in from Italy by Henry IV. Now it's considered a very, very Parisian square. And it's just lined with trees, planted in rows perfectly, of course, and just at least 100 benches. It's just really a space that's designed to, you know, to encourage you to watch the world go by, to take a moment. We're going to cross into the arcades here. Again, the perspectives. That's pretty much French architecture, right? Take a few beautiful motifs and elements and just repeat them. Repeat them, repeat them, repeat them. So on that side and then all the way to the other side of the square, to the northern end. Look at that sky. Wow. So I think we're going to finish today. I don't even know how long we're running today, but feeling good. This has been a fun video. These arcades, also with a brick motif. Back in the day when you were a member of the royal court of Henry IV, you would have gone and have strolls, of course, around under the arcades, but also there were galleries and cafes and restaurants and shops, and it's still the same case today. So I want to just show you this tea shop, this tea purveyor called Daman Frères. It's one of my 2 or 3 favorite tea producers or tea manufacturers, sellers. It always smells incredibly good here. Bonjour. They're always very kind. Their teas are fantastic. And I want to show you that we're inside one of those pavilions now of Place des Vosges. And on my tour of the Marais, I'm always sure to show my clients this. If you can make that out, that's some of the hand-painted wood beam ceilings from the 17th century. Beautiful artistry. So that's how the residents were living back in those days. So you've got that beautiful contrast that Paris does so often with the very, very old, 400 years old, and the very modern and chic vendor. Very chic boutique. What I like about this place too is that they've got most of their teas on display, so to speak. In other words, you just pop this off and you can smell it. So they've got all of their teas in these little receptacles. And man, talk about aromatherapy. It's incredible. They also do a great job with tea kettles, paraphernalia, if you can make this out. So this company's been around, Daman Frères, for hundreds of years, actually. They were one of the very early tea purveyors, and they quite often have free samples here as well. I'm actually in the mood. If this is about vicariously living through Paris. Here we go. Oops. Okay. Ooh, it's cold. Nice. Some iced tea action. Okay. So also the shop I quite like because of their gift sets here. They're quite affordable. And again, this isn't an advertisement for this shop. I just think it's really great. So you can get these little tea sets that are all pre-packaged, pre-wrapped. And they're like little pieces of luggage, if you can make that out. Good stuff. Merci, au revoir. All right, folks. I'm going to head back to the center of Place des Vosges, and we're going to meet up with our friend Barbara. If you're a Patreon subscriber, then pop over, as usual, to our private Facebook group, the Cafe Chat group, and wait there for maybe 5 or 10 minutes while Barbara and I find a spot, and she's going to answer your questions that you sent in. As always, thank you so much for joining me here. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, whether you're watching live right now or you just caught this on the replay. I appreciate the support. I appreciate the love. I appreciate your passion for Paris. I'm quite thrilled that there are so many of you out there who love the city as much as I do. Now, somewhere in this crowd, I got to find our friend Barbara. Oh, I see her. There she is. I'm going to finish my tea, and I'll let you all say hello to her real quick. Hello, Barbara. I'm going to finish up the video if you just want to say hello to everybody real quick.
Hi, I'm real excited to talk to you. Okay.
Fantastic. Okay, there's Barbara, and real quick to finish up, center of Place des Vosges, this is the son of the King Henry IV, Louis XIII. So on that note, with that composition and with that sentiment, I'm going to thank you for joining me here. Catch me in a week, every Saturday for free on my Facebook page. Again, remember, if you can't bring yourself to Paris, I'm going to bring Paris to you. Check out all that info in the description of my Instagram, my blog. You can book tours with me when you're in Paris because I am a full-time tour guide. That's why I started this in the first place. So have a great weekend, everybody. For my Patreon people, check us out for the Cafe Chat, Barbara and I, under the arcades of Place des Vosges. It's going to be a good one. Take care, and I'll see you next week.